Speaker this evening is Mrs. Fay Tee. She is a mental health nurse with over 20 years experience and currently works with the Clarendon Health Services as a community mental health officer. She is also a guidance counselor and graduate of the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, where she earned a master's of the Arts degree in counseling psychology. So I said before that she had the receipts, right? Which means she has letters behind her name to prove that she's more than capable. All right. So Ms. Tee is passionate about impacting the present and future generation. Hence, she seizes every opportunity to sensitize persons about the relevant developmental, psychological, sociocultural, and spiritual matters. Her approach to information sharing is characterized by creative musical expressions and comedy. Remember I said this was a creative, right? Thus far, she has published 8 mental health awareness songs under the label Psyche Tunes, Volumes 1 and 2, and a single, Tell Me. She is sought out for a variety of events as a motivational speaker, a preacher, entertainer, and moderator. So at this time, I am going to invite Mrs. Fay Tee to unmute her mic, turn on her video if that's the plan, and begin her presentation. So,
well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It's good to be with you, you know, and I'll say it's good to be with family.
Good evening.
Yeah. And there isn't anything strange about me saying I'm with family. I may not be a member of Peniel, but you know, one of the things I realized is you don't find all members of one family residing under the same roof at all times. Yeah. So we may have different denominational banners, but as long as we are members of the family of Christ, tied into that scripture read from Romans chapter 12 earlier on, all of us are members of one body. Amen, church? Good. So it's good to be with family tonight. Do I have permission to go ahead and share my screen? Hello? Okay, share screen. Oh, great. While I get my stuff ready to roll, I mean, how you all doing? How you all doing tonight? How is everybody? Come on, don't all shout, but let me see some emojis that tell me how you're doing, how you feeling? Am I low?
I'm good but tired.
Oh, good but tired.
I'm okay.
You're okay, all right. Anybody is not so okay?
I'm feeling good, give God thanks, but a little tired.
I can hear the feeling good in your voice.
Yeah, but a little tired. Give thanks.
Right,
is it okay to not be sure how you are?
And that has its place too, you know. Yeah, in Spanish they would say poco poco. You know, but that's as much Spanish as I know, mind you. In Jamaican terms, poco poco, yeah? Very small. But it's good to be on. And listen, though we're talking mental health, one of the best things you can do when you're talking about mental health is to try to maintain a posture of being mentally healthy. And a part of that is a recommendation my son made to me some weeks ago. My 7-year-old made a recommendation. He looked at me and he said, "Mommy, you need to upgrade your face." So, "Mommy, your face looks like this. You're too stern, Mommy. You need to upgrade your face." So I want to say to us tonight, he says he was a 5 because he had a broad smile on his face, but I was only 1. But at least I was grateful he didn't tell me I was 0, you know what I mean? So do a little upgrade on your face. And every time you feel like frowning, hey, that take a whole heap of energy, you know? So, and a lot of effort on the muscles. So every time you feel like your face getting tight and you saw a wrinkle coming on or a furrow in the forehead like mine, then you just do a little upgrade, right? And you can do it to others. This is one thing that you can do to others as they do unto you. When they tell you you need an upgrade, you tell them the same thing too. You know, you need an upgrade, and everybody smile. Cool? Right. So I see some Kimberly Basco. Yeah, man, the face that if you have it permanently, then you really need no upgrade at all. You look like a 5. Right. Brother Lewis, I can see the smile, broad man. Lovely. All right, nice. For those who are tired, I don't really want to put you to sleep, but you probably are experiencing a little bit of tension in the shoulders, especially if you're sitting at a desk or, there are so many demands on you today. And you're not even sure if you're ready for tonight's discussion, because right now you're just tired. I want you to just breathe a little bit. If you had some kind of disappointments today, if you're on because you know you have a duty to be on, but really you're not feeling so good inside yourself because something just never worked out right, I want you to just take a little time to breathe. All right. Now there's a formula for breathing. Please don't run for no 4 before, It's a 4 by 4 by 4 formula, right? 4 cubed. What you do for me, you're gonna sit with your feet flat on the floor, your back comfortably against the back of your chair, your hands on your thighs with your palms facing upward. Now listen, this is not yoga, all right? And it's not transcendental meditation. I don't believe in those things. I'm just teaching you how to allow your body to relax using simple biology, all right? So you sit for me now. And what I want you to do, we're just gonna do 2 cycles. You can do the rest when you're about to go to sleep. But you're gonna breathe in. Let me give you the instructions. You're gonna breathe in slowly to the count of 4, which I'll give you the count. And when you're breathing in, you breathe in through your nostrils. Then you're gonna hold that breath to the count of 4. Then you're gonna exhale slowly as if you're blowing out a candle to the count of 4. So it's 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. All right. That's the posture we're gonna take now. So I hope you're ready. I'm gonna give you the count, and you're gonna breathe. Rest your hands on your thighs, Brother Lewis, with those palms up. Just rest it gently on your thighs, right? Good. So you're gonna go in now. I'll say in, and then I'll give you the count. All right. So it's in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. In again. In, 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. And out. 2, 3, 4. Ah, nice. Now here what I want you to do. We're going to do it 2 more times. But as we do it these 2 additional times, I want you to consider what is it that you may have encountered today or since the week started that you would have considered quite toxic to your spirit, toxic to your mind. What comment was there that you heard that really got a hold on you in a negative way? What was it that frustrated you somehow? I want you, as you're breathing out, to breathe those things out. And when you're doing your breathing in, I want you to just breathe in the promises of God. Just imagine yourself taking in that fresh breath of life. When Jesus said to the disciples, when he breathed on his disciples and said, receive it, the Holy Ghost. I just want you to just imagine yourself as you breathe in, that you're taking in that peace of God, that fresh breath of his presence. Like when he breathed into man on that first day of creation, I just want you to imagine that God is just breathing into you as you take that breath. I want you to just like you're inhaling his promises. You get what I mean? I think you get my drift, right? But when we get on to breathing out now, anything that might have been toxic to your system, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually, I want you to just imagine that those things are going even as you breathe out. All right, so let's do that. 2 more rounds. So it's in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And out, 2, 3, 4. In again. In, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Just allow yourself to sigh. Just sigh. Nice, 2 nice sighs. Go. Wow. One more. Wow, lovely. Woo, everybody. You're supposed to be feeling a lot better now, right? Come on, just raise your hands up in the air. Yay. Wow. Lovely. Nice. Great. Now we're going to get into the presentation. I started towards the end, you know. This is one thing you can do to help take care of your mental health. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Yes, we're in the midst of a pandemic. I overheard earlier on that you've been having discussions concerning the times we're living in and how we cope in various ways as a family. A comment was made earlier, and it seems like there was a pursuit of some kind of clarity where the expert had mentioned that while we have the COVID-19 pandemic, there's also a mental health pandemic. I would agree. I don't have the figures for what's happening here during COVID times, but what I can say to you is that since 2020, well, even so, even before COVID took off the way it did, but in 2012, the World Health Organization projected that by 2013, depression, which is a mental disorder, would have been the leading cause of disability worldwide. By 2017, that became a reality. Depression has been and is the leading cause of disability worldwide. Now, somebody would have thought that the leading cause of disability is motor vehicle accident where people lose them leg and them hand and so on. Actually, the evidence through the World Health Organization says it is major depression. Why? Because with major depression, people can be physically present on their jobs, in their homes, but mentally far away, unable to function because they're not at that level of alertness and their cognition is down, right? So especially with all the concerns of this time, one could easily say that we have a mental health pandemic. Can you think about the level of anxiety? Anxiety is the most common mental disorder in the world. The figures show up to 2021 September, the figures show that 1 in 5 people experience anxiety episodes. Now, remember, anxiety is not only panic attack, right? This anxiety has to do with this excessive fear and feeling worried about what is imminent or what is unknown, to the extent that it affects people's ability to function. So I didn't put that into my slide, but just responding to the query earlier on, just to let you know that you're on the right track. That expert is speaking truth. Mental disorders are very prominent at this time. A lot of it having to do with the uncertainties. Uncertainties about the present, uncertainties about the future, and the experiences that have been so traumatic, especially over the past almost 3 years. All right? So let's get down to what I have here. In terms of questions, there's going to be a point. I'll pause at intervals to take questions so people do not forget their points, their concerns, right? And we'll try to get through this in an hour. All right? Good. So I did start, as I promised on my slide, with the breathing. Now, one of the things when I thought of this presentation, in fact, I was sharing with another church group, and this is what came to me. Now, we are Christians, we are church people, and sometimes we seem to think that we must be strong. You know, nobody, especially if you have a title, bishop, pastor, evangelist, deacon, deaconess, sometimes you get a feel like, oh no, my members are relying on me to be strong. I can't let anybody know that I have to shed my few tears sometimes, or that I'm not coping well with this, or that I myself feel afraid. Because if I am to say this to anybody, then what are they to do? After all, they depend on me. We, even as leaders, have to be prepared to be vulnerable. Can you think about it? Jesus, the greatest example, had made himself vulnerable, you know. He didn't have to cry at the tomb of Lazarus. He didn't have to weep when he was with his disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane. No, he was man, but he was God. But the Bible says he was in all whiles tempted like as we are, yet without sin. If Jesus, our example, and the patriarchs, many of them mentioned in the Bible, I mean, when you think of somebody like Elijah, after his great victory on Mount Carmel, he came to a place where one word from Jezebel, he went into a little corner and said, hey, God, take my life because I'm the one left. And me can't bother. You think about Jonah, when he came out of the belly of the whale and he went and he preached the greatest sermon, and the people of Nineveh repented, wicked city. They repented and they said, hey God, we know saying all do this and that, and people deserve to dead. How come you make them live? And that's why I never want to go preaching up. And he said, better you take my life, God. The Bible didn't hide the fact that there are men of old who at some place felt like, boy, you better be just dead. David in Psalm 42, he had to speak to himself. He admitted that his soul was downcast and disquieted, disturbed. But then he recognized that even in the midst of that, he had a source. So he spoke to his soul and he said, hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him. Even though Saul after me and everything rough and things tough out the road, I shall yet praise God. Job, a man who eschewed evil and there was none like him in the earth. When everything went and he knew not what to do, he bowed and he worshiped God. He said, for I know that my Redeemer lives and he shall stand in the latter day upon the earth. I'm talking to somebody. You feel kind of like you can't bother. It's just enough on top of plenty. And right now your cup full and run over. Can I tell you, you're not alone. You're not alone. And even though you may feel like you can't talk to nobody because not no name confidentiality again and they're going to preach it and pastor got to talk about it from a pulpit and forget that. That's a lie from the devil. There is somebody you can speak to. And that's part of why you're having this evening session, right? So whoever you are, don't know anybody. The sister who invited me not even know her so well enough. Right? When I know her sister, we have not had any conversations. I don't know who would be on here, but let me tell you something. When I'm talking, yes, I'm a health professional, but I am a Christian first. Right? And so when I'm doing a presentation, especially when I'm talking to brethren, if I get a sense that there is something that I need to address, I will do it and leave the consequences to God. But I'll say to you though, if in the course of my presentation, you feel that some things are just hitting home and you may even find yourself becoming tearful and just feel, overwhelmed, please, it's not my intention to do you harm. I will give permission for you. If you want to talk to me off this platform, you can give me a call, but also speak to one of your leaders, speak to somebody who you can offload it. It's okay, it's biblical. In the book of James, it said, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that you may be delivered. So it's okay to have an accountability partner. It's okay to talk with someone, right? So you don't have to leave this platform feeling like, boy, me just beat you up and hurt up your sore foot and all of that. I know you don't know if to turn now. There is somewhere you can reach out to me if you so desire, or reach out to somebody else who may be able to help you deal with whatever came up during this session, right? Okay, so hear me now. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I'm having a challenging time. It's okay to say, that my children are acting up. Even if you're the leader and you help other people's children, it's okay for you to say to somebody, I need help with my children. Right? That's okay. Moving on. So what is mental health? According to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual, a person, is able to cope with the normal stresses of life, right? The person can work productively and fruitfully and can make a meaningful contribution to society. Another thing that's important is that you're aware of your own abilities and limitations, right? So that's what mental health is. So when we think mental, I know often people veer off into thinking sickness, madman, on the road. Mental has to do with the mind. And we are on a continuum, be that it is positive mental health, we're doing good, everything up, everything sell off, everything turn up, or we may find ourselves like, well, like my sister said, what if I don't really know how I feel? Or somebody may say, I don't feel so good enough. Yeah. those are different levels along the continuum of mental health. And there are those now who actually get to the point of being mentally ill, perhaps because they might have sought help early and didn't get it, or maybe they didn't seek help early. So we're going to talk about those things as we go through this evening. So the definition we have here is what we want to attain to. We want to maintain good mental health regardless of what comes our way, right? So what are some of the signs that somebody is experiencing positive mental health or mental health, not ill health, health? When somebody is able to enjoy life and their surroundings, right? Yes, not everybody enjoy life, I'll tell you that, right? Some people don't find pleasure in anything, all right? When one is able to have good relationships at home, at work, at school, yes, you can relate well with others. When you feel confident, I mean, not about arrogant and show off right here, but when you feel like, yes, you are capable, yes, you can do something, and even more, yes, living by the mantra of Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's confident. All right, good. When you are able to face problems, resolve them, and learn from them, like in this pandemic, if you realize that, boy, though everything did go downhill, you know, and though me never sure how me go manage it work because I'm a lockdown on my workplace, but you've been able to identify within yourself other skills that you could utilize, even becoming entrepreneurial, and you're able to say, aha, now I find a way around this thing, man. I am good to go. That's a sign of being mentally healthy. So mental health doesn't mean you don't face problems, but you're able to overcome the problems when you're faced with them. Right? And also, very important, a person who has good mental health has a sense of humor. Now, let me ask you, is there anybody in this chat who is aware that or would agree with me that God intended us to be humorous people? Yes, Brother Lewis? I wonder why you agree. It's all right for us to be humorous? God wanted it to be so? And I see, is that Sister Louis over corner there raising her hand? Oh, bless the Lord, sister, I see that hand. Right? But tell me why though? Why you think give me evidence that he wants us to be humorous? You can open your mic.
Laughter helps relieve a lot of stress and just make you feel good inside.
Happy. Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Now, do we have any biology student? I saw a name there. The worship leader has Doc on his name identity. Is he a doctor? I saw Doc, or is it an abbreviation? I don't know. But we have any biology specialist here? You, Sister Pasco?
No, ma'am, no.
All right, why I ask that? Let me not belabor that too much. But if you should hold your arm up, at the top here, what you will feel is your biceps muscle. And at the back is your triceps. But if you should kind of put a little pressure in between the two muscles, you'll feel a bone. Well, I'm thin-skinned, yeah? So it's easy for me to feel my bone. Some people may have a little challenge with that. You see the advantage of being thin-skinned? I can tell my anatomy without a problem. You see? So in between those muscles, we have what is called, anybody knows the name of that bone? The bone in the upper arm, anybody knows the name of it? Come on, from the 57 people, somebody answer me.
Humor?
Funny bone.
Funny
Humor.
bone?
Oh, no. Somebody step over my script a little bit, but yes, humorous. Humorous.
Humor.
Was that a student answering?
It was me, Pascal.
Oh, Sister Pasco. All right, good.
Yes.
Yes. So the humerus is the largest bone in the arm, and it's in the upper arm, right? You see, it's on top of things. And right beneath the humerus is the funny bone. You know, when you discover that the funny bone is there, when you pass in the doorway and you lick your elbow in at the door, jump, Jesus, what happened? What happened that time?
Feeling in your fingers?
I tell you, feel like electricity run through the room and pain right down to all your belly button if you're not careful. Now, the fact that we have a humerus, and underneath the humerus is the funny bone, that tells me that God intended for us to have a sense of humor. And so I want you to sing with me this little song, which I designed just with this in mind. And the song says, humor me, I have a large humerus. Now, mind you, the word uterus also appears in the song. Please do not put uterus where humerus is, especially the brothers, right? So listen to the song, and then you are going to get your chance to sing it. And you can do it for fun at home. I find it quite fun. So it says, by the way, do we have little children on here? Do we have small children? It's a family thing, right? Right, because I want those little children from 3, from 6. You can sing it as well, right? It's a great little jingle for you to learn. So it says, humor me, I've got a large humerus. Humor me, I've got a large humerus. God gave it to me when I was in the uterus. Humor me, I've got a large humerus. Humor me, I've got a large humerus. Humor me, I've got a large humerus. God gave it to me when I was in the uterus. Humor me, I've got a large humerus. Beneath my humerus, I've got a funny bone. Humor me, I've got a large humerus. All right then. So that's your homework, you know. Practice the song. And you know what, people? You see, if grandpa or uncle or daddy sing and make the mistake and say, humor me, I've got a large uterus, laugh. It's okay for you to laugh, right? I've heard somebody sing it and mix up the words, you know, right? But we all got humeruses, which means that we can laugh, all right? Excellent. Moving right along. Now, one of the major challenges to mental health is this thing we call stress. Yeah, I want to say we use the word loosely when we say stress, but stress is really the body's response to change, right? The problem we have is not stress. The problem we have is the stressor, S-T-R-E-S-S-O-R. The stressor is our problem, our challenge. But stress is really the body's response to change. So God designed us with what he calls a stress response. So usually you go out there, you're on your way, doing your jog in the morning, and suddenly here comes a big dog running at you. And man, you run and you scale the 10-foot fence and you wonder, how come you jump over that? It's because of your autonomic, or may I say automatic stress response, right? Which you go into a flight mode, right? Because of the changes that happen in your body. Now, somebody else may not be so able to run and scale the fence. Another person may see the big dog and just freeze and say, Lord, be dead now. That is freeze, fright mode. But another person may say, oh, big dog, I come here, take a piece, I take a meal, lick me now. That's getting into fight mode. You stand up, especially you know you have your child beside you. What man, no big dog. You're not afraid of no big dog. And you know run left your picnic. Yeah, you take something and club at the big dog. So the body goes into flight, fright, or fight mode when you're faced with a challenge that demands that you cope. And so that is what we call the stress response, right? But the big dog would have been the stressor, the challenge that is creating a demand for you to respond. Now, the COVID pandemic is like a big dog, you know. And some people just say, boy, no, we're going to do this, you know. But you have to be careful not to say that, because the power of life and death is in your tongue, all right? But some people say, oh, yeah, there have been pandemics before, you know, and we come through it. So guess what? We're going to come through this, and we're going to find ways and means to come through. Oh, my finances challenged, but I'm going to come through this. Life was always rough, and we always found another way. So how we look at it will influence how we deal with it, right? And then that will, so you have the natural physical response, and you have the mental and emotional response to whatever challenges to COVID-19 as a challenge, right? So when you are able to respond appropriately and to overcome, That is actually good stress that motivated you to stage a response and then overcome. So we call that positive stress or eustress, right? The negative one now is where why you perform at your peak for so long, over time. That is good stress or eustress because you know take no little time for self-care, because you keep on saying yes to everybody, because yes, you're very talented. So every time them ask if there's something, you say yes, because you know so you have the ability. But then guess what? No? Even Jesus always took a little time and went aside away from the crowd. And none of us in this group is the Messiah. So you take a little time and go away and replenish your energies so that you can maintain eustress or good stress and keep performing. But if you find that you reach your peak and you're going and you're going and you're going to work, because if you take leave, you don't know how the department will run. And Lord of mercy, after nobody else not understand this, a new software. Hello, if tomorrow morning you collapse, somebody else will automatically understand and the work will continue. So you have to take little breaks. You have to step back and take care of yourself so you don't find yourself on the other side of the mountain where you're going into decline because your eustress that motivated you has now turned over into distress and you find yourself getting burnout and heading towards depression, right? So stress response, it serves its purpose. When you're able to stage a response and cope with the situation, overcome the challenge, then good, that's eustress. But when you find yourself unable to overcome, or the challenges just come in fast and furious, and you're not getting a break, then negative stress may come in, which is distress. All right? I hope we're all on the same page. All right. Here's one of the things we need to consider. A few facts about stress. One of the major derivatives of stress, one of the things that emerge from being stressed is depression. And I gave you a little information on depression earlier on, right? I told you that it is the leading cause of disability worldwide. And in so, it is a major contribution to the overall global burden of disease. The global burden of disease has to do with how much they have to spend to attend to this thing every year across the world, right? And the worst thing about depression is people can get to a point of being helpless, hopeless, and in despair that them feels they look here and we may as well done it. And we may say, can a Christian get to that place? Only God understands how the end of that goes. But there are people who, when the pressure gets that high, and them feel like them not no way out, me can decide say backslide and backslide. Boy, David said, when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to that rock that is higher than I. Sometimes some people get them heart get overwhelmed. And in a presentation I did recently, when I looked at the natural and spiritual components of mental illness, you know, sometimes when people are weakened by depression, by the realities of life, the enemy can capitalize on it. An open door can be created. And if no help is given, such a one can be overtaken and get to that place of not even being able to cry out or pray or ask God for help, then just give up and end it. Yeah, I will never encourage anybody that that's a way out now. That's theft because our life doesn't belong to us. But at the same time, I cannot beat upon somebody and say, oh, if we should do that, them should have do better. Sometimes there was a cry for help. And tonight, I want us to also be able to recognize the cry for help, even in the midst of this pandemic. All right? Lovely. Romans 12, can't go wrong with that. Let's be our brother's keeper. When one hurt, everybody hurt. All right, so what are some of the sources of stress? This thing that predisposes us to getting depressed and all of that. What are some sources? There are personal sources. Why do people feel stressed out? Why people feel like they can't manage? Why people feel like life is hard? Sometimes it's problems in relationships. And do Christians have problems in relationships? I say to you, yes, because there are statistics that are suggesting that the rate of divorce in Christianity is overtaking in some areas of the world, overtaking that of the world. When you look in North America, for example, right? So relationship problems, and relationship problems too is not only spousal, but also parent-child relationship problems. Those are rife right now, especially where you have teenagers and with all that's happening and their disruptions, those things are likely to be even more commonplace, right? Situations such as in health. A person who, a gentleman, yes, he's married, probably doesn't have any children yet, and he's diagnosed with diabetes and he's on medication, and you realize, oh, that's going to affect his ability to get children. Somebody who's diagnosed with cancer, and they're thinking, my God, I'm this young and I have children, and how are they going to manage if I should die? Right? Ill health on the part of a family member. When you know that you have your parent and you probably don't have support from siblings or you're the only child, you have to go to work, but at the same time, what you're working, not enough to be a helper, to take care of mom at home. How you manage that? So mama's ill health can become a stressor for you. Not because you don't care, but you love mommy dearly. But it's a hard thing to balance caring for mommy at home while trying to make the ends meet. Addictions, and might I say, addictions are not only addictions to alcohol and tobacco or marijuana, crack cocaine, and so on. No, not just substance use. But can I tell you, internet addiction is a real one. Some people are stuck on the internet. Some people are stuck on games, yes. Some people are stuck on things that should not be beholden by the eyes. Like gambling is an addiction. No, it may not be anybody on this platform, but you may have family members who can't stop by the picture ticket and they catch 5 or whatever the name of the thing. Yeah. So those are addictions too, right? In this time, especially where we have pandemic, where there's personal loss of a loved one by death, which is a death loss. And sometimes we overlook the non-death losses, but they can be just as important and sometimes even more overwhelming than the actual death losses. So where a loved one, a mother has died, a grandma, a child has died, for whatever reason, but especially as well in COVID, where you can't even have proper closure, because you can't have proper funeral, right? Some persons may have had that to deal with when they couldn't have any funeral service at all. That would have complicated the whole thing, right? So loss and bereavement is something that can be a personal struggle. Can I tell you though, non-death loss of a job, that's something that people grieve. That causes bereavement. Loss through separation or divorce. These are some of the things. Lost opportunities. Yeah. So when I was supposed to go overseas, I just got the job. But because they said no flights out and no flights in, I lost it. That's an opportunity lost that may result in grief and bereavement. Sometimes we overlook these things. When a child loses a pet, that's a loss, not to be taken for granted. I say, I'm not your ball about that's someone, something, not just only a puppy. No. Don't you think of it that way. That's valuable to the child. And loss brings with it the grieving process, which we need to validate and allow to be done appropriately. The financial difficulties, now, me not have to belabor that one because everybody know how that go, right? Even if you don't have that financial difficulty, you know somebody who have it. And you can see the spin-off from that. That's a personal stressor. COVID times, child has CSEC exam to do, and you can't afford the gadget or the internet. Wow, it's rough. SBS to be done, Lord have mercy, you don't have the liquor work to buy up the stuff them for the child go to the practical. Huh? That ties right back into the family responsibilities. You're the sole breadwinner, and you have so much on your hand. You have your own children, and you have your parents, and you have yourself. Major stresses. Where somebody would have experienced abuse, sometimes from childhood, but it's unresolved, sometimes in current relationship. And sometimes we talk about the adults, but children experience abuse, and that's a personal stressor. We can't overlook them even as we're discussing family. And the abuse here sometimes is abuse online. They're so exposed now. They're not going to school where the boy or the girl will bully them and take them lunch money. And but online, people can, if they're not careful what sites they go to or who they are in contact with, people can manipulate them. We call it cyberbullying, right? Where they blackmail them. So we have to be aware of these things, right? Now, for persons who work, there are workplace stresses, right? Right now, the power struggle, who want to be in charge, and we talk about crab in a barrel kind of thing. Sometimes it's in the workplace, power struggle. You may be of equal rank, and instead of complementarity where people see that, hey, both of us have important roles, you have competition where some people tend to think that, no, I am more important than you are. But in the context of a workplace, if we all could just think of Romans 12 and remember that the person who cleans the floor is just as important as the person who wields the pen to give the signature for some major deal to be struck. Because if the office is not clean, you can't come in there and work. Respect due. For our least comely members have even greater value. My God, if we only get it, right? So where we have struggles, power issues, then the team are going to be dysfunctional. Because, as I reflected the other day, there's really no I in team. That's a common word, a common expression, and it's true. So where we have struggle issues, struggles at work, then that is going to be a workplace stressor, right? Where there are personal conflicts. People who say, well, me and the one in our tech team, we can't get along. But you need each other for the organization to function efficiently. Yeah? Where there's bullying or harassment. You have some bosses who feel like you need to do what they say, otherwise you're not going to get the promotion you deserve. Yeah? Or people want to talk down to you because they think that their status is higher than yours. Those kind of things are stressors in the workplace, right? Where you have people working on the front line, the person who comes out and sanitizes the chairs and the counters. Sometimes people treat them like they're not important, but yet they're so important in keeping the organization running. And if they feel undervalued, then that can disturb the synergy in the workplace. And it's a stressor for them going home to say, boy, I'm a labor, nobody not even notice, look how I expose myself. And they might treat me like say me and I'm nobody. Yeah. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, we're not the Messiah, and some of us take on other people's problem. So we carry in the work stress of others at work. And that is what could become a stressor for us. We're doing fine, but we carry everybody else's burden. And we carry the burden of the whole workplace. Things say we're indispensable and it depends on we shoulder. We are not the Messiah. So we can offload our own stress by recognizing. All right? All right. So now we're down to the core thing that affects everybody, man, woman, and child across the globe now. Another major stressor is the COVID-19 pandemic. We are at a good place now, I believe. I think we're really getting there. We're learning the disease a little better. We're becoming more comfortable, I think, with living with it. But the reality is, it is here, right? It is here just like HIV/AIDS is here. When HIV/AIDS came about in Jamaica in the early 80s, I mean, it's like people think that tomorrow morning the whole country going to drop dead. Yeah. But here we are. People are even talking about it openly now. Yeah. In the 80s, just the same. Polio was a big thing. And then they had this massive vaccination program. And well, that was late 70s into 80s. Massive vaccination. But no, polio was pretty much eradicated from Jamaica. So challenges have always been there. From Adam and Eve sin, the human race have been having problems. But God has made us to be resilient creatures. And we have been able to overcome the hurdles. Yes, we get some losses along the way. And I'm not minimizing that. But I'm also saying to us that we will make it. We will make it. We're in a war. There are casualties in the war. But some will make it. Even with the children of Israel would pronounce death on them own self in the wilderness, two of them still make it to the promised land. So there will be persons who will make it. Whereas we respect those who, for even in light of trying to protect others, may have lost their lives. We value their efforts and we show regard to those who somehow didn't make it. But we give thanks that we are still here. and we have to encourage each other along the journey. Yes, it's a stressor, but we can make it. So what are some of the things that COVID-19 has done? I want us to pay a little attention to our children. When we talk about stress, sometimes we think it's a big people thing, and people are not to stress over. But you see this thing called a disruption of school? Let me ask, do we have any, may I see some raised hands for children in the group? Children, can you just open your mic and say, yes, teacher? Come on, let me hear the children. Yes, teacher, yes, miss, yes, miss, yes, miss. Anybody under 18?
Yes, teacher.
Hi, Nikisha. No, that's not Nikisha. Somebody using Nikisha's mic. All right, so I heard one child.
Sir.
Any other children say yes, miss, yes, miss? The children gone to bed already?
Yes, miss.
Oh, that's right. I heard another one there. Yeah, man. So children, I want you to pay attention now. And you can tell me if what I'm talking is true. And when I finish talking, you can talk about it with mommy and daddy. If any of these things were a bother for you, or you struggled with it and you probably never know how to say it, I go and say it for you. And then you can repeat it to mommy and daddy or uncle or auntie. You see, to say, so what Miss did say tonight is really something that was bothering me, but I just didn't know how to say it to you. Yeah, right? Good. So disruption of school. You think about exams being cancelled and restructured. We're getting into it a little bit more. Last year, there was a lot of uncertainty for persons who were doing CAPE. The question of postponing, sitting out, the question of doing it online, what format will it take, the changes of date for PEP, the changes of date for CSEC. It threw a lot of people off. Many were resilient enough to push through. But there are still some children who have to be repeating this year because last year didn't go well for them. Right? So that's what we have to be sensitive to these experiences that our children have had and are having, so that when we're tempted to just rush them, we remember that they are dealing with something too. Our children between 6 and 12, that's the peak time in their lives when they want to demonstrate that they're capable. Yeah, it's a stage that we call it industry versus inferiority, where they feel like, yeah, I can do it. So sports day, they want to run, they want to compete, they want to do things and get points. They feel capable. When it comes on to quiz and all that, they want to be in it, they want to participate, they're very competitive. But now that COVID is in and school has been out, many of the children have not had a chance to participate in these group activities and these competitions that they would have so much been a part of and which were so important to their development. All the different clubs, 4-H and the Red Cross and all these. Debate societies, all of that. You can list it. Let's not ignore that the absence of these things from the lives of our children, which are normative experiences, the absence would have caused a disturbance in how they're experiencing life right now as it is under COVID conditions, right? Where you normally have graduation where the whole family can come and they receive the prize and everybody take picture together. All of that had changed under COVID. These are matters not to be just overlooked, but to be processed to see whether the child is coping satisfactorily or if they're having some issues on account of it, right? In all of that, I said the isolation from the peer group comes in, right? Especially for those children who are the only child. There's nobody to play with at home. As for me, I have 3 boys who go to school, but the beauty is they have each other. And I advocate, if you're online, when you get break time, get up from in front of the computer, go outside, run up and down and play. Play football, mama lash you, whatever. If I'm home, I play with them too, right? Lunchtime, get up, go outside and play. Don't sit in front of the gadget all through the day. And yes, it's a school uniform you have on. Play as if you were at school, right? And parents, sometimes you have to be the substitute peer, right? You draw the boundary, like we'd say in Jamaica, we play with picnic, but we share them something different. You can play with them, but they know the boundaries, man. They know. But it's okay to spend time and play with them a little bit. They need that, right? And so the common thing is from the cradle right up, they must say, I'm bored, it's boring, I'm bored. So boredom sets in. And when they get bored, it's not because they don't have anything to do, you know, but they may not be doing what they would really like to do. And we have to watch that boredom thing because sometimes they run the risk of getting themselves into trouble. You know, them say devil find work for idle hands. So let us be careful to take that bored thing seriously and see how we can help them find options to relieve the boredom. All right. Talk earlier on about abuse. Online abuse has increased, yes, and abuse in the home. If you listen to the news, you'll hear the Child Protection Family Services agencies makes reference to it, that many children know the home is not the best environment, especially to be spending all the hours of the day. Because for some children, the escape has been school. The escape in terms of making sure that they have a proper meal for the day would have been school. The escape in ensuring that nobody's molesting them would have been school. No, there are sometimes home with people who are substituting for the parent because the parent gone to work and people are taking advantage of the children. So they experience sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, physical abuse, all of that. Part of that too is that the whole home environment is going through a stage of change that the members don't necessarily understand and are not necessarily processing well. And there's this thing called displacement, where when the parent is frustrated, they may just take it out on the child, which is not fair. There's no excuse. I'm just trying to probably explain some of what happens, right? So we have to be aware that our children have stressors too, not only adults, right? Oops. Okay, good. Now, let me just pause a little bit to see if there is any question I need to respond to before I go to talking about how we cope with the stresses with which we are faced. Any question, anything I need to clarify, any comment at this point in time? No? Clear? Oh,
I just like to ask, good evening. I just like to ask if there's anything called good stress.
Yes.
And I'd like you to, explain, or
Right.
maybe it has a particular classification that you could say what it is, and if it's something that is good enough for us to tolerate.
Right. So I was explaining it a little earlier on that there's what we call good stress or new stress, EU stress. And new stress is what really motivates us, because as I explained, stress is not our problem. Stress is really our response to change. So it's called a stress response, right? And we are designed to respond to situations that challenge us. But how we deal with those challenges is going to be important in determining whether we had a eustress, a good response, or we end up in distress because the response was not effective enough. So what I explain is that eustress or good stress is what motivates us. Is what makes you get up out of the bed from 4:30 because you want to beat the traffic and reach to work because you're looking forward to a good day at work. That's eustress. It motivates you, right? It helps you to get the job done. It helps you to overcome a hurdle. But then if all the time you're expected to be just at your peak performance and you're not getting any break, you're not getting any rest, then what motivated you before? As we say in Jamaica, too much of one thing, good for nothing. What motivated you before can become a problem for you, which is bad stress, distress. This is where, for the economists in the group, you talk about the law of diminishing returns, where you're putting more in and getting less out because really you have not been taking that step back to replenish yourself, right? So good stress motivates us. But if we are continuing on that activity over and continuing one thing add to another, you can get to a point where it becomes counterproductive and becomes distress. Did I answer your question? I hope I did.
Thank you very much.
You're most
Thank
welcome. All right, one more before I move on.
Good night again, everyone. It says here coping with stress.
Oh, that's
Yes, it
where I was
is.
going next.
right, I'm asking now, is this a part, is that what will this, we're dealing with stressors, dealing with our stressors? This is
Yes,
what, okay, all right, I just wanted to, all right,
coping strategies to
okay,
deal with our stress, or as I like how you emphasize that,
yes,
And
all right,
these that I have put here first, I want to spend a little time as we consider our children. I just looked at sources of, and I use the term loosely, stress. Yes, stressors for children. I just went through a list of them. But how do we help them to cope? And then I'm going to do a broader scale coping for all of us as adults too. But for children, especially when you think now you have small children, children, let's say from 3 to 6, all right? It's a pandemic time and there's uncertainty with school and they may have to be at home and stuff, or even children under 3. One of the things that's very important is for you to give them positive attention. But don't only notice when they do something wrong and stop and say, rude, stop that, stop that. When the child finishes with the toy and puts the toy away, give that child a hug and say, great, you did it. Don't only see when they leave the toys scattered all over the floor. Yeah, you talk and you talk and you talk. The one time when they do it right, take a little time out to applaud and celebrate it. In fact, they'll want to do it again, all right? So give positive attention. Establish routine for eating. So they can predict when breakfast, when lunch, when snack. They can predict when it's sleep time as well. You can predict when you're going to want them to do a little schoolwork. So even though they may be home and maybe if the internet now work well, don't just leave them loose and everything going haphazard. Have a kind of routine so that the children desire routine. Believe me, they desire it and they need it so that things can be a little more predictable. And when things are predictable, we feel like we're more in control. So it's important that we do that, right? Encourage physical activity. As I explained earlier on, when they're online for school, listen, FaceTime, be it on tablet, phone, TV, screen time, I should say, sorry, screen time, that's the expression. Whatever the gadget, screen time is known to have negative impacts. One, you think about the impact on your eyes. Two, you think about the impact on your body in terms of being in a particular posture for an extended time. It's going to cause tension in the muscles. Three, you think about the fact that, hey, this is radiation we're sitting in front of, like it or not. There's a magnetic field around every gadget, right? So, and then now, what we will find if we're not careful, our children become couch potatoes because they get so stuck on gadgets that they forget that there's something outside. There's a place called outdoors. Right? So we have to help them to break away from this new routine of being gadgetized, my word, to actually remembering that they need to develop their motor skills. So yes, the gadgets help define motor skills. They can type. Oh yes, they type faster than me now. And yes, they're aware they know. But hey, the gross motor skills are still important and need to get up and exercise. They need a sense of being able to physically balance. And that's how they're going to be invigorated. That's how they're going to get the mental alertness that they need as the circulation is improved through physical activity and the bones are strengthened, the muscles are strengthened. So they need that. And you control the weight gain as well. All right. So we need to do that for ourselves. And it can be collaborative where parent and child do it together. Like my son is going to come and say, Mommy, can you do press up on 4 fingers? Now, what about out of order? Mind you, they know that this mommy will go some lengths because up to a couple months ago, I was still flicking in my backyard with them boys, and still trying to walk on my hands. Yeah, man. I grew up a proper tomboy, so we do them things, right? I still climb tree and so on, right? I race with them up the hill, that kind of stuff. So when he asked me to do push up on 4 fingers, 2 fingers on one hand, this boy challenging him, I told him I could do press up. So I just point my fingers and press them upward. You know what I mean? Okay. All right. So we have to find the ways. Okay. Another thing that you can encourage with your children is music. Music is powerful. Music can act. Well, you're laughing at me, Maureen. All right. Music can actually assist with their learning too, right? Because music Classical music is great for stimulating the brain to learn math. All right. Music can be relaxing. And when we talk music here, it's not just about them listening to somebody else's music. They can become creative. Their children are going online now and learning how to play an instrument, right? So that is good too. Okay. Dance. Yes, that's physical exercise. That's one of the greatest aerobic exercises you can do. Full system going. All right. I mentioned in the routines the importance of a sleep time. You let your small children have naps and let them have consistent bedtime. Part of the routine, very important. I cannot fathom how a child is going to be up until 11 o'clock, a child in primary school. No, that's not good. The younger you are, the more sleep you need. So we need to allow them to get the sleep in there, right? If they're doing CSEC, I may give and take CSEC and keep that. Yes, sometimes you have stuff working on that you have to be up until 11. But in my house, by 9 o'clock, you go to your bed, sleep. Then you can wake up early in the morning and do something when your brain is fresh. Our children need to understand that though you have your assignments and all of that, you want to finish everything before bedtime. You've been on the gadget all day. You've been at this thing all day. Look here, too much pressure is counterproductive. If you study, you're studying, there's something called information overload. You need to allow your brain to rest so that it can assimilate information. And parents, we need to communicate this to our children, right? So that they get a routine rest time and they can wake up feeling fresh. What? Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's what we grew up on. All right. Another thing, in this COVID era for our children, a sense of security comes when they recognize that the parent or the caregiver is aware of this pandemic and knows how to put in measures to mitigate its impact by, the sanitizing, making sure that they know what to do when you go out, you come in. So, for example, when we do church, we go to church and we come in and, bam, come in, bathroom, get out of those clothes, wash, change. Then we do our gargle. That's routine. That is ruling. You must gargle, yeah, because you want to cleanse the airway. That's important. So they know the routine, and that gives a sense of security. That look, we're doing what we need to do to protect ourselves. Wear the mask, right? As long as it is required that you need to do it. Okay. So we have to model the COVID prevention strategies and give them model for them and let them see that look, we can have some amount of control. Certainly, ultimately, rest with the Lord, but there are some things that we can practically do. Another thing you can do with your children, if you know that your child, just before they go to sleep, they get grumpy and irritable and throw tantrums and so on, then hey, don't wait until they get sleepy to give them their meal or to say you're going to bathe them. Anticipate when are they likely to start feeling sleepy, and before they actually get there, put everything in place so that you don't have to be fighting with them to finish their dinner. Yeah, I know sometimes things go out. Yes, I come in late sometimes too. So I know sometimes you miss it, but try to have a routine, that you anticipate where negativistic behaviors are going to come in and you just stop it before it starts. All right. What I used to do with my boys when they were smaller, they have something and they don't want to let it go. I practice the law of substitution. I offer them something that I think, okay, this can be appealing just the same or maybe a little more. But we're negotiating. So I'm not just going to go and say, hey, give me that. No. I say, hey, here, let me have that, please. So I offer them something to take what I want. Nobody loses. All right. So win-win situation. Okay. Now here are some general coping strategies now for all of us. Sometimes hold on, I missed something. I missed. Somehow that slide fell out. But let me say something to us now in terms of how do we know that we are not coping? What are some of the signs that tell us that we're not doing well mentally? Before I step into these coping strategies, let me just give you a few of them. When I mention being at peak and not getting a reprieve, and then you find yourself on the decline, here are some things. Disturbance in sleeping pattern, where you find yourself sleeping too much or too little. Disturbance in eating pattern. You may be eating too much or too little. Lack of interest in pleasurable activities. So your man normally likes to watch a good movie or, you know, play a little online, what we say now, online, one of those games. What's that game? Not draft. That's this highly this game that people play and even competition online. The name kind of slipped through my mind. But you probably like to do something, play football, watch football, stuff you don't really have fun with. Lady, you normally like to cook and fix up your place nicely and just enjoy that. But no, you're not interested. Right? You don't enjoy anything. That's a sign that you're not doing well mentally. If you find yourself feeling sad and just crying sometimes, not even know what you're crying for, right? You're not stupid. It just means that you're not coping well, okay, with whatever the stress it is. If you find yourself feeling guilty, like you're responsible for everything will go wrong, you know, unearned guilt, and you just keep blaming yourself, that's a sign that you're not doing so well. If you find yourself feeling just tired all the time, you know, so you sleep or you wake up and you just feel tired, you don't have no energy, we call it lethargy. That's a sign that you're not doing too well. And if you find that these things are happening to you, let's say 2 weeks or more, most days of the week, most times of the day, then you need to see a therapist. You need to speak to your medical doctor. That's a good starting point, because guess what? Sometimes there could be medical conditions that make it seem as if you're having a mental health problem. So for example, if your thyroid gland is not functioning properly, your thyroid production is low, right? Thyroxine level is low, then you can look as if you have depression, you know, which are some of the symptoms I listed a while ago. If it is that your thyroxine level is too high, it can make you start behaving irrational and like you're out of touch with reality, and people think you have schizophrenia. Can get that bad where you're hearing things and seeing things and all that. So a medical assessment is important for somebody who's had a history of seizure disorder. If they get a seizure, after the seizure, they can have what we call a post-ictal episode that can cause them to act in a way that is considered strange. And you may think, Lord, him gets sick mentally. It may be signs reflective of a mental disturbance, but the underlying thing would need to be attended to. So it's always useful when you find yourself experiencing these changes in your mood and just how you experience reality through your senses or how you relate to others. If you're seeing changes in yourself or in your loved ones, is a good starting point is a medical doctor. If somebody is at a place of expressing the desire or the intent to harm self, that alone is a reason to seek help. Let's not take it for granted and say, chat, man, won't make fit talk. So go do it, now me give the rope. No, that's one of the worst things you could do. Don't do it. When somebody expresses that, you know, say, I'm killing myself, the thing to do is not to shout and go announce it to everybody. The thing to do is, really? What have you thought of doing to hurt yourself? You're not making any suggestions by asking that question. You're actually beginning to probe to find out how serious the person might be and if they may have a plan. Because if the person is able to tell you that they have a plan, there is a means that they can identify. They probably have a timeline in mind. Yes, they have access to the means. Okay, and especially if that person has ever done any kind of self-harm behavior before, then I recommend straight to the emergency room of the hospital, not even to the mental health clinic. Don't even go to your private practitioner. Straight to the emergency room of the nearest hospital. It's like that. Now, much of what I mentioned earlier, yes, you may see that in children, but sometimes children's way of showing that they're not coping may be a little bit different. So where you find that your child is normally very cooperative and, you know, easy to warm up child, well-mannered and respectful, suddenly starts becoming aggressive and rude. No, nobody ask her which man she is. And that's not a good starting point. Yeah? What we need to do is to slow down and explore what is it that has changed that could be resulting in this behavior. When you see a decline in your child's school performance, Albeit we know that with the online, some things may change, but you can also measure, compare last year to this year and see the significance in the decline, because that makes a difference. You may see decline, but when you see a real significant decline, then it's going to raise your, you're going to raise your eyebrows on that one. You probably need to start by just exploring, maybe with the teacher, is there any unsubmitted assignment, right? And then you have to talk with the child, not judging and talking down, but trying to be an ally of sorts so that you can get information that will help you help your child. Where your child is giving away their valuable stuff, favorite toys, they're giving those things away. That's a cause for concern. Where your child is running away from home or planning something that they want to run away, that's a cause for concern. Mindful when you see behaviors in your child that you're not comfortable with and you certainly won't condone. Remember, the child's behavior is not the sum total of who the child is. So you have to distinguish or differentiate the behavior from the person. So you realize that there are some behaviors that are not acceptable and need to be changed. But the child is always a good child. The Bible says every good and every perfect gift comes from above. So it's a good child. It's a good child that you have. But it's the behaviors that are not good. Hence, we want to preserve that good child, even as we work to change or transform those behaviors that are not good. So the behaviors now can measure up with the good child that we have. Right? So those are just some things that I want to mention here, so you know when something is going on. Again, you may see even in the child a disturbance in eating and sleeping pattern and so on. They may start paying attention to more comfort foods, the chocolates, the ice cream, the peanut butter, the, all these kind of fatty food. Pay attention for that. Binging, eating, and then sometimes just going and bringing back up whatever they eat, just leaving the table to go and get rid of what they just poked themselves with a while ago. These are the behaviors to watch, all right? And talk to your clinician, talk to your medical practitioner, who may refer you to a psychiatrist or to a psychologist. All this is important. So with all that I've said now in terms of some of the signs, and yes, the fact that stressors can lead to mental health challenges, how do we cope? Told you how we can help the children to cope. How do we cope as adults? Let's go there. So there's what we call guided imagery. Especially you get up you find that, boy, you sleep and then you wake up by 11, 12 o'clock in the night and you can't go back to sleep. Then it's important that you have a way of managing that, yeah? So guided imagery is one strategy, which is where you probably just lie there in the bed and you take yourself to this nice place, a place where memories are made, a place where you really had fun and enjoy yourself. I mean, my safe space is like the beach. I love the beach. I'm not a swimmer, but I just love nature, right? So you just imagine yourself there at the beach and you begin to engage your senses, thinking, okay, fine. Yeah, I'm here and I can feel the water lapping on my ankles. I can feel the sand between my toes and just reflecting, feeling the breeze, seeing the spray of sunshine on the ocean as the sun is setting, just seeing the seagulls overhead, hearing the hum of the engines from the water bikes, whatever it is. Get your mind into that safe, relaxing space. Imagine yourself having a nice juicy mango or just some lovely juice while you're there seated. Guided imagery, visualization. Guided imagery, oftentimes you have somebody walking you through it, but visualization, you can do that without anybody being around, right? Okay, the breathing exercise, like the 4x4x4 that I taught you earlier on, for those who came on a little late, where you sit comfortably with your hands on your thighs, palms up, and straighten your back, relax, feet flat on the floor, and you inhale slowly to the count of 4. You hold the breath for the count of 4, and you exhale slowly through your mouth like you're blowing out a candle to the count of 4. Much like what we ladies would have to do in labor room, right? The breathing in through your nostrils and then all through your mouth slowly, that kind of thing, to just tell your body that it's not so bad, the threat isn't so bad. You can calm down, right? Okay, another thing is about practicing presence. Yes, it's useful. Sometimes anxiety arises because we are fearful of something that's imminent. Yeah, that say yes, this will happen, or we are fearful or worried about the future, something that we're not sure about. Okay, and so these things, if we find ourselves living, yes, tomorrow, next week, and next year from today, what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 20, no, Matthew chapter 6, he says, hey, you can't, by worry, add a cubit to your stature. Come on, stop it. Sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. Right? So practicing presence allow you to live in the now. Live in the now. Don't try to live tomorrow from today. I'm not saying don't plan, but I'm saying don't get so preoccupied with the future that you miss out on enjoying the moment. Because what we really have is this moment. So in this moment, you tune in to yourself. It could be through the form of a body scan where you just tense and relax the muscles in your body and you realize where the areas of stress lie, and you can just relax those muscles. It can be just by doing some kind of grounding activity when your mind wants to just veer off. You just tune your senses and begin to reflect, okay, what are 5 things I see, 4 things I hear, 3 things I smell, 1 thing I taste, that kind of thing. Right? Just tune in, like I'm here now in my space and I can hear them cricket outside making noise, right? Just tune into your environment, live in the present. When your mind wants to veer off, bring yourself back to now. And guess what? Never leave out your faith. Sometimes when things get challenging is when we say, well, we don't have time to pray. We forgot to do this, we forgot to do this, and we leave out the prayer. We can't run away from God in time of trouble. Because after all, the Bible says, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and they're saved. So when we're challenged, the only reason you need to be saved is because there is something out there that is threatening to harm you. So you need salvation from whatever that thing is. Run into the Lord. Yeah. Find your refuge in Him. He is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. So practice your faith when it seems like everything is going to us. Back to that again. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. That's what the psalmist says, yeah? So I just ran through some strategies. Make sure you work on your nutrition. Yes, listen to me. Things are expensive, but here it is. If you go to the market and you see salad tomato being sold for $300 per pound and plummy for $100, why the plummy is the same nutrients you're getting from both of them. If lettuce is $600 a pound and callaloo is for $200 a bundle, get it, right? You getting your nutrients just the same. All right. If you're seeing that, go over the on your tree. So why you go to the road, go buy 1 box orange juice? Eat 2 guavas, you get more from that. 1 orange gives you more than what 1 box orange juice is going to give you, as in a small box orange juice, because you get the real natural stuff, right? So let us try to eat healthy as best as possible. I know it's not easy, but a home cooked meal is always better than go pick up some junk food out the road. Right? So let's try. It's okay to have a little broth for it. I might say to us, hey, you know that cornmeal is a good staple. Turn cornmeal nice, you know. Yeah, man, that thing they turn up when you really turn it good. Yeah. So it's good to have that. Exercise. I can't overemphasize the need for physical activity. And if you think that, boy, you're not so fit, it's okay. Breathing is a form of exercising. Simple stretches is a form of exercise. You're sitting at your desk at work, you can just rotate your ankles, rotate your wrists, rotate your head on your shoulders. That's a form of exercise until you can graduate into something more. It's not about strength training and pushing these. No. You can start off simple, work with what's tolerable. If you think that you have some respiratory or heart condition, speak with your practitioner to get advice in terms of how much you should be able to tolerate. Yeah, right? And again, you see the big up thing, embrace humor, laugh. Find some old time comedy like Family Matters and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and laugh, right? Steve Urkel, you just need to hear him talk and you're going to laugh. Okay, stuff like that. And just try to laugh. It's important. Take time to discover yourself. So probably you're distressed because you're not on work and you're home, or maybe you're home in isolation or on quarantine. Don't just let the moments drift by with you worrying. Do something. Get into some kind of self-discovery. What talent, what gift do you have? What is it that could be a great business idea that you can now spend the time to develop because you get a little time for yourself? Yeah. Our outlook is what's going to be really, really important. It is said that 90% of life is how we react to our experiences, not so much our experiences themselves. All right. And in discovering yourself, you start a project. And may I say to us, sometimes you need to reach out to somebody. Sometimes it's in reaching out to the other person that we ourselves get helped. Right? You know the story of the man with the banana skin, yeah? The man up in them tree and said, boy, I'm last banana, you know, so you just eat it and done it. When him drop his skin, another man come up and pick it up. He said, oh man out the road worse on me. Can't hurt myself then. Can I say to us now that if it's even half of a banana, you still have somebody else has his skin. So reach out to somebody. And as you reach out to somebody, you discover that, hey, you have worth, you have value, you still have purpose. So you need to keep on living, all right? And live well, all right? Few little things that you can do in terms of physical activity. Remember them something here, you know, running wheel. Yeah, man, our children nowadays need to learn these things. They've been spending more time at home. We who are seniors, yes, I'm a senior. We need to teach them some of these things, right? Let them get the little wheel and run it, man. Anybody remember? Piece of wire in the thing and you run it, or you can make a coaster. So much plastic bottle about now. But then we only had the Chlorodo bleach bottle to cut and make coaster. Now you have all kind of chubby bottle. Just cut that and put a piece of stick and run the wheel. No bucket covered about, man. Or a piece of hose and you put a piece of stick and connect it. Yes, man, show the boys how to do these things, right? Some of the old time something. Come on, grandma, come on, auntie. Let them learn how to make the dukunut. And everybody ever eat dukunut know what that is? They probably call it tire leaf. But it's time for us to teach with more, the generation spending more time around each other now. The children must get annoyed at grandma because grandma is a little slow. And grandma must say, Lord, don't make too much noise. Come, we can find a common ground. Let grandma teach them how to do the thing. Them can do it like grandma give the instruction. Give them, let them do the work, yeah? Anybody know what this is? Yeah, man, that's how we used to be put in the back in the days, by the way. I did this just recently, right? I did these things just recently so my children could get to understand the old time something. Because there was a time when I was suspected of having COVID-19. Early days when the least thing up the year, them think of COVID. So as a suspected case, I had to be home on quarantine. Thank God I was fine. I'm still fine. I'm well. But while I was home and waiting on results, we said, all right, when everybody else inside, let me go outside. We take turns. And so I made myself handy. I stayed in my little part of the house and did what I had to do. And at the end of the day, everybody get a treat, right? I didn't stay bored, right? Oh, well, you learned the song already. Okay, so there are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves as we go through this time. Few things to bear in mind. And this is called EI, or emotional intelligence tips that we can use to cope and preserve our mental health. Here it is. It's important for us to know, understand, and manage our feelings. Our feelings are ours and we have a right to them. Every feeling is legitimate. Even anger is a legitimate emotion. Yes, it is. The problem is not anger. The problem is what we do with it. Right? The problem is whether we allow ourselves to live a lifestyle of being angry, or if we're angry at the wrong thing just on the edge all the time. Right? But if you feel angry, you don't dwell on it, you manage it in a way that you don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt another person physically, and you don't destroy anything. That's the rule of thumb, right? And that's for adults and children. Remember this, he who angers you conquers you. I got this quotation from a patient of mine some years ago. He said his boss told him he had an anger management problem. And I just thought this is such a powerful quote where he says, he who angers you conquers you. You cannot yield your emotion to other people. Nobody can make you angry. It's your choice because your emotion is yours. So some of us will do better mentally if we stop blaming people for how we feel. People can do things to us, say things about us, yeah, but they can't decide how we feel. They can't decide our response. That's absolutely our choice, okay? The other thing that we need to do is choose our battles. Listen, wife, you cannot change your husband. Husband, you cannot change your spouse. That's not your duty to do, right? We can't change anybody. You can only change ourselves. So we need to know to choose our battles very well, right? Another thing, Let's postpone our judgment about people. You can't say, in here because of feminine tonight, why such and such a one company platform. You notice that when I feel them time is support, and when I feel them, you don't know why the person is not there. So let's not imagine things about people and judge people. No. Keep a clear mind. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Think well of other people, and that will make your mental space a little healthier, right? Learn to be content. And we have to model that, and we have to teach that to our children. So you can't say, no, me not have no money for go buy a tablet for you go to school, yeah, man, the last one you have your mash up. I don't know why you go manage. And at the same time, them see you go to course, go credit new furniture when the one in another house still reasonable I can work with. No. We have to model for them what it means to be content. Yeah. Embrace conflicts as an opportunity for growth. So in your workplace, not everybody go agree, but you can agree to disagree, and you can process the disagreement in such a way that everybody grows and the workplace is healthier for having had that conflict, right? So it's about handling it in a mature way. Practice the art of communication. Don't talk down to people, yeah? Don't talk at people. Let us try to use I messages. So somebody said something or did something that you found offensive. Come on, take responsibility for how you feel. You feel angry, you feel frustrated, you feel annoyed. Tell them, I feel angry. When you did whatever, I would prefer. So if it's somebody, teenage child in the group, no, your parent shout at you in the presence of your peers, and you're not like that. The thing to do is not to act up and show off the bad attitude out there and be rude and disrespectful. No, the thing to do is to say, Mommy, I felt really ashamed. I felt really angry. I felt really bad when you shouted at me in the presence of my peers. I really prefer if next time you take me aside and talk with me. Yeah, that's okay. That's a mature approach from a child. And we need to be willing to listen. And we need to model this for them as well, how to communicate our feelings in a respectful way, that we're not attacking, but we're having our voices heard, and we will be listened to and not only heard, because we're not attacking. And the other person doesn't end up having to mount a defense. All right. So those are just a few tips to help us cope, especially in this time when there's so many stressors around. Final round for questions. No, we have been at it for a while, but I suppose I can take maybe 3 questions and then we wrap it up for the evening. Anybody home?
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Any questions? Well, I have one, Mrs. V. How do you know when you're just dealing with when you're just grieving versus when you're really moving from grieving to depression?
Oh, great. Thank you for that question. Okay, so with bereavement, there are stages that people oftentimes go through, and it's not always linear. You can go back and forth, or you can start at a different point. But there's a stage of grieving that is called a depressive stage. All right. What we notice with that is that the grieving experience is usually that the individual is like wanting to be with the other person, the person who has passed, just wish that that person was still around. The person may, yes, indeed, have changes in the eating pattern, sleeping pattern, be tearful and so on. But the duration is going to be important. All right. It's not necessarily going to be consistent for the 2 weeks or more most times of the day. And so when you go to the practitioner, they're going to assess if it's in the presence of a loss, then they'll have to give a little more time to determine whether this is actually a major depressive disorder or if it's a case of bereavement. Now, bereavement is something that we normally fix using just talk therapy, right? When it's major depressive disorder, it usually requires medications along with psychotherapy or talk therapy for the person to recover. So the assessment of whether there was a recent event, a case of loss, the nearness of the loss, the previous experience with loss, the nature of the loss. These are some of the things that will come into play to determine, okay, can these signs and symptoms the person is displaying be really associated with the event that happened, or is it that this person is now into a state of major depression?
Okay.
I see a hand. Is that Reverend Courtney Johnson? Oh, no, it's not. Okay. I just wondered. Right? So I hope I answered you there. And then they would make reference to what is called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And they'll make reference to that to distinguish the criteria as to whether, okay, if the person really meets the criteria for major depression. So duration, severity, combination of signs and symptoms, and well, I said duration, those will determine. So you need to have at least 5 out of 9 sets of the signs and symptoms for it to be major depression. And it has to be most of the day, most days of the week for at least 2 weeks. So they're going to look out for this kind of stuff to determine whether it may be major depression or if it's bereavement. Okay?
Okay. Just additionally, what is is there a difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack? Is there such a thing?
Yeah. Anxiety on a whole, panic attacks fall under anxiety disorder.
Okay.
Right. Somebody can be experiencing anxiety, but it doesn't reflect as a panic attack. A panic attack is usually when they feel like there's this pressure in the chest, like somebody standing up in the chest, like breath is stopping, they're losing control, they're going to die. But we know it's not a physical thing, it's just the physiological. And this ties into what I was explaining before, where the body goes into overdrive in the presence of a perceived threat. And that is what now causes all this flare up in adrenaline and everything like the system locking down. Right? Okay. Whereas with anxiety, it's this it's a fear of something imminent, as I said, or worry about the future, which may present differently. So for somebody who has an exam and may start having sweaty palm, okay, or wanting to go to the bathroom all the time and getting a little jittery, right? Those could be signs of anxiety that are not as severe as having a panic attack and a perception that boy mega did. Yeah?
Okay.
Right.
All
so
right.
I saw Mr. Courtney Johnson and then I saw Karen Johnson. I'll take in that order.
Okay. How are you?
Well,
I'm across the pond. My question to you is, or is it a question or seeking information? What it is, someone, like for instance me, when the situation gets more difficult and things just seems miserable, it's like I'm Jamaica saying, "Get ton up." I'm ready to just go ahead and work. I will just work and as if nothing never happened, and I get more satisfaction out of conquering everything. I'll take on all the problems and just go forward with it. And then at the end of it all, those who were hurt or hurting will look over and how do I do it? But I know somewhere along the line, there's a problem with me to be able to do that. Is there something for that? Or
no, what it is that's usually referred to like you identifying a defense mechanism, right? So it's a defense mechanism that's called sublimation. So when problems arise or something that could be distressing for you emotionally, you channel that into doing something productive. So instead of thinking and feeling it, you get something done. It's a coping mechanism. That has its limitations though, because the risk you run is that you could burn out and you could delay. So let's say it's an instance of grief, bereavement. You could end up delaying the processing of it. And guess what? Like putting it under the carpet, something else happens later and it reemerges, right? There is also, some persons have what we call the quality of hardiness. Okay, so they will go through stuff and they just seem to have this unusual capacity to be resilient, like a jack in the box. Boy, you press me down, I'm bouncing back. Press down, you bounce back. It's a jack in the box kind of thing. So sometimes how we are brought up the experiences we've had, the exposure we've had, some of these things can inform how we cope with situations. And the quality of hardness is really one of those innate things that some people have more than others. So it's not necessarily that something is outright wrong, but we all take our cues from the generations before us and from our life experiences and from our personal temperaments in how we process and deal with things. But you have insight enough to realize that, oh, this is how I deal with it. You also need to know, look and say, you know what, I have to find a little space though, right? To make sure I deal with whatever so that I don't end up having it coming to meet me at an inconvenient time. So what I'll say to you, whereas you want to get ahead and get stuff done, if there's anything that you know you need to deal with, just assign yourself a little time on the day to say, okay, I'm going to give it 15 minutes to just look at it, process it. So you give it a little time, yeah? Process, then you go through your relaxation thing and you get back to what you need to do. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're not denying yourself the opportunity to process, and you're also not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed, overtaken by whatever it is that you're experiencing. So I can't tell you that your way is wrong. And I can't tell you that my way is right. I'll say to you, if you're not hurting yourself, you're not hurting another, you're not destroying things, then you can keep on pressing on. All right?
Okay. All right. One final part. Since the end of 2019, November 2019 to be exact, to as close as last month, I didn't even realize it, but I've lost 17 family member, to include a brother-in-law, my father, stepmom, cousins, just left and right, mother side, father side of family. And I'm still going. Is there a red flag warning sign to watch out that a possible crashing point may come? Because I'm as a Christian, I talk to God about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a clear answer from him that the day I was conceived in my mother's womb, my death warrant has been issued.
Mm-hmm.
And the day I was born, it has been signed that I'm going to die. And I'm like, wow. So I just got to live every day as God directs me, to live for him, do what he wants me to do, but I still come back to the human side. With me as a human being, and this is going on, and I'm saying this, I have one of my managers literally insults me verbally, saying, you think I'm lying there? He's calling me a liar that I do not have that much, nobody, he knows nobody that have that much people die in their family. And I actually know people with more death in their family than me, But for me, is there, as you know, for a warning sign that I can watch out for in case I get to that level? Step back, pull back, cry out.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me say this to you now. You said you're a Christian, and yes, there's a place for prayer. There's a place for you to definitely run to God. But as I mentioned earlier on, he has created the opportunity for us to run to each other as well. And in fact, you've been so making yourself vulnerable by sharing, it's a very good thing, and I respect that. What may be very important for you to do, though, is to try to, in fact, find someone you can sit down with, or even go online with, to say, hey, let's walk through this. Connect with your feeling. Now, one of the feelings you may actually have, some people may say it's not a feeling really, but you may actually feel a sensation of numbness, right? Because the body is designed in such a way that it allows you not to just have to deal with everything at once. It's kind of like denial. When people get into denial, which is a stage of grief, usually the first one, that's enough, I'm not going to allow that. Yeah, that really serves a purpose. Sister Johnson, I know your hand getting tired, but that's soon come. All right, that actually serves a purpose because it allows you to gradually receive the reality, right? Because if you got everything at the same time and had to just accept and deal with everything at the same time, you might have gone into what is called an acute stress disorder. So what you're going to be looking at now is whether this trauma of so many losses, and I'm not sure the circumstances of the loss, because if some of them were traumatic, if you actually saw some of your loved ones at their worst, having playbacks, like the picture keeps coming back of this person sick and in bed and tubes and da da da. It's time for you to begin to talk about it. It's disturbing your appetite isn't so good anymore, right? Or you may find yourself eating, but it's more like the cake and the ice cream and the chocolate that you're eating, and you're binging on stuff. There's an extra mic open, right? Those aren't the signs to say, hold on, you're not. If you find yourself getting irritable, you're snapping, or you're not concentrating as you used to, or you're forgetting stuff. These are some of the things to look out for. Yeah, feelings of tension, your shoulders and your neck, you just feel tight and it's hurting. Unexplained aches and pains. The doctors say you're fine physically, or you may even find an elevation in your blood pressure. Those are things that say, hey, process it. Yeah. So I would suggest you to start checking yourself. Take a little time to journal. How am I feeling today? Why am I feeling this way? How can I deal with this in an effective manner? Do I need to talk to somebody? Talking to somebody, they may not be able to do anything for you, but just being able to express yourself can be quite cathartic. All right, Brother Jay.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Lady Johnson.
Yes, good night. And I thank you, Brother Johnson, for that. Thank you very much. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. Thank you very much for opening up to us. Okay, my question, 2 questions. One, is counseling okay? Is it okay? Is it going to counseling okay? No matter what the situation, is it okay? And question 2, is it okay for Christians to go to counseling? Those are my 2 questions.
And I would say yes, and I would say yes. And let me tell you how the Bible affirms that. Yes, we know Jesus is the wonderful counselor, Prince of Peace. He's the epitome of what it means to have a counselor. Yeah. And in fact, what does the Bible say? In the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Yeah. But it does say, many are the plans of a man's heart, but the Lord's counsel that will stand. So counsel and counseling is a biblical term, all right? But what is important, and again, it goes back to what James 5 says, confess your faults one to another. Pray one for another that you may be delivered. Now, when I talk about counseling, I'm aware not every counselor is a Christian counselor. So you're going to choose where you go. We live in an age where a lot of counseling is now about what we call Zen Buddhism. A lot of the techniques, yes, take something from Buddhist philosophy. That's why I cautioned you earlier on that when I was taking you through the breathing exercises, it's not yoga and it's not transcendental meditation, right? In some counseling techniques, they use these things. So you have to explore who you're going to. As a counselor, that's going to be very important, right? So there are Christian counselors if you feel more comfortable as a Christian, but mind you, though I am a counselor and I'm a Christian, when you walk into my office, I'm not there to preach to you, right? I will not just use the Bible. If you give me permission, I work that way, but I'm going to utilize as well what I know and utilize the principles of the word in what we call a covert manner. So I'll guide you with the principles. So if I'm dealing with anger, I'll say, you know what? Someone once wrote that, boy, he that is slow to anger is greater than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. I'm not going to be taking up the Bible and say, hey, this is taken from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32. No, but I'm quoting a principle that's worth living by. Yeah, do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. People say that's a golden rule, but it's Jesus said. And all things whatsoever you would that men will do to you, do you also to them. What am I saying? Treat others with respect. Give to others what you want to receive for yourself. So I incorporate the principles, and their counselors will incorporate the principles of the faith without telling you, say, it come from book, this chapter, this verse, that. Right? And so you have to go into a counselor is a good thing, but you have to be selective in where you go. All right? Kind of, and for any ethical counseling practice has what we call an informed consent document. In that informed consent document, they detail the qualification, the kind of approach to counseling, what you can expect as the techniques to be utilized. So the whole counselor value system is somehow going to come out in that informed consent document. So already you get a picture of who it is that you're going to, and whether this is what you want, if it would be in agreement with your belief system. Right? So there is a usefulness for Christians to go to counseling. It's fine. If you go to medical doctor, yeah, then that's also important that you can go to a counselor who can help you process those mind-related matters. I hope I answered your question, Sister Jane.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Sister Pascal says she's not staying up till 10 o'clock tonight, so she makes sure she show up.
Yes, that is right. That is right. Do we have any more questions? Guys, don't be shy. Don't leave here and then say, boy, I wish I had asked something,
Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
I like the presentation, very good. In the ending part of your presentation, you mentioned about emotional intelligence. Can you say a little more about that? Because I know emotional intelligence is very important, and even for us as Christians, to practice it. So can you tell us a little bit more how it helps in the mental stage?
All right. So there's this man called Daniel Goleman who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence. We often talk about academic brilliance in terms of, IQ, boy, brightest man, at 10 second get, and 16 keep. No, that's not possible, right? But him so bright. But then somebody who is bright and cannot control himself, when we look sometimes at our parliamentarians, these bright people who throw in pen at one another and insulting each other in parliament, you wonder. Emotional intelligence then is what says to us that, look, it's important that we know how we feel. Self-awareness, yeah? So you need to know how you're feeling, be able to identify with a name. You need to understand why you're feeling how you feel. Taking into consideration as well that your feeling is yours and it is legitimate, right? So understand it. So you ask yourself those journalism questions. Why am I feeling this way? When do I tend to feel this way? Where do I go that I usually feel this way? Who is it that I might have seen or not seen? What is it that happened and did or didn't happen? Yeah. So you begin to explore the feeling. If it's a positive feeling, you can explore why you're having this positive feeling so you can repeat the experience. If it's a negative feeling, you can explore why you're having this negative feeling so you can avoid that experience as much as possible. Then when you are able to do that, the next thing for you to do when you have explored is to manage the feeling. Right? So as I mentioned, the rule of thumb, when you're managing your feelings, you do it in a way that you don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt another person. And I say physically because, mind you, you could do your best and somebody still feel hurt emotionally. Right? But don't hurt another person and don't destroy anything. That's a rule of thumb. So even if you're happy, it still needs to be managed. Because if I'm so happy that when I'm driving, I'm going to let go of the steering and put up my foot on the dashboard while I'm still driving, certainly I'm going to crash. And that would not be helpful. Right? So that's what we need to do. Now, when you are self-aware, the next thing is also to be other aware. So you're aware of the feelings and experiences of others, and you're able to display what we call empathy. This is going back to treating others the way you would want to be treated. In Jamaican terms, they say, put your foot in the other person's shoes. So you are not taking on everything the other person is experiencing, but you're just saying, if I were that person, how would I like to be treated? So you're aware that the other person has feelings and needs as well. And their feelings and needs are important, right? So emotional intelligence. You're able to be assertive, using like the I messages that I mentioned to communicate the importance of the relationship and the importance of your feeling and the other person's feeling, and also the importance of your relation, because you need each other. So you use assertiveness instead of aggression. You respond instead of reacting. What's the difference? When you respond, it means that you think about an experience you might have had. Think about why and how that experience happened and what's the most appropriate way to deal with it. And are you prepared for the consequences? All right. So that's how you think it through. But reaction means that you just do like what the dogs and cats do. As something happens, the reflex action. Ooh, anything you do, me do, but eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and there's no grace. All right. So it's important that we learn what it is to be emotionally intelligent. That is, being aware of how we feel, understand how we feel, being able to manage it, and also have a sense of empathy towards others. Another part of it has also to do with developing a sense of responsibility, which is what we have to start by teaching our children how to make simple choices, you know, how to, and simple choices could be in terms of what to wear, right? Stuff like that, contributing positively to your home, contributing positively to your society. That's about displaying a sense of responsibility. So in a nutshell, that is what emotional intelligence is about, all right? Mood management, self-regulation.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Awesome. Is there another question?
I don't have a question. I just want to endorse. Good evening, by the way. What the presenter has been saying. I really appreciate it. And I also want to endorse the point that she made about being a counselor and counseling others using the word of God without them being aware that you're doing so. I would like to endorse that in the sense that I have read a couple of books, not many, a couple of books. And when I notice carefully the advice that they're giving to people, what is one, chicken soup or something like that, the various different counselors. I notice from time to time the things that they're talking about. You know, the word of God tells us that there's nothing new under the sun. And from time to time, when I look at positive counseling or positive words of advice, when you check the Bible, it's there already, you know? So I really like what you're doing. Very positive and uplifting. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother.